I'm curious as how everybody's feeling this morning.
This is going to be the most productive part of my day. All I'm doing is writing follow-up reports for for my contract from last year. So this is a fun
Fun,
this is a fun thing to get to do today.
I bet. All right, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you here. Today we're going to be discussing sustainable business and what that means in today's world. My name is Ruby Trish. I'm currently a sophomore here studying finance and accounting. I work with the on-campus leadership team as well as housing. I'm an RA here on campus. I'm going to toss it to my co-host Avishi to introduce herself.
My name is Avishi. I'm a second-year psych major. I'm with the Career Development Center as a career guide. I've only been with them for like 2 weeks, so, not experienced like at all, but I'm really grateful for this opportunity and I'm really excited to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, I'm curious to learn a little more about everybody joining us in the call today. So if you could introduce yourself, your role within the sustainable business industry, and your pronouns, that way we can respect how you identify. We'll get started from there. So who would like to start us off?
I can start. I'm April Kappler. I currently live in Wilmington, North Carolina, but have ping-ponged around the world and ended up in Boone.
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. So until we get April back, would somebody like to continue introductions?
Sure. My name is Beverly, pronouns they, them. Also she, her. I didn't put them in my screen there. But yeah, I'm one half of Rofhiwa Book Cafe, which is a new up-and-coming Black-owned bookstore coming to East Durham. We're online now, but we've got our store is opening up hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we highlight Black literature with like a global emphasis. So a lot of our writers, all of our writers are from various parts of the Black world. Mm-hmm. We also have coffee that we source from roasters in North Carolina and beyond. Coffee roasters, BIPOC coffee roasters in the coffee space. So that is who I am.
Wonderful.
Maybe I should then go next. Hello, Nadeli Yaziyo. I am the curator for Rofhiwa Books. And so my job is to basically put together the books and find them and source them and try and create something that is coherent.
Wonderful. April or Alisa, I believe you were.
I'll let April go.
Okay.
Sorry, the beauty of technology these days. Yeah, just to finish out, I work with the Better Cotton Initiative right now. I work with a large group of U.S. cotton farmers to help them meet a number of principle and criteria in their farming practices, such that they are licensed as growing sustainable cotton. So around the world, we license over 2 million growers within the Better Cotton Initiative to help support better farming practices, sustainable industry, and I more broadly work with different brands, retailers, and partners that are in the textile supply chain to help them identify ways to create more transparent and sustainable supply chains for their products.
Cool, gotcha. And last but not least,
my name is Alisa Herr, and I am the founder and CEO of Unity Web Agency. We are located in Research Triangle Park, and I went to Appalachian and graduated in 2006.
All righty. Thank you everybody for that.
I'm sorry, my pronouns are she, her.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the introductions. To kind of help frame the conversation and give our listeners, viewers, a better perspective of what sustainable business is, our first question I'm going to toss to Alisa, and that is, what exactly is a B Corp or sustainable business?
Yeah, I wanted to give a little bit of background on social entrepreneurship and sustainable businesses, just to give context for what a B corporation is.
Mhm.
So social entrepreneurship is, like, if you think about the types of businesses from charities and nonprofits to traditional businesses as a continuum, where nonprofits and charities, their primary driver is to achieve a social value. But on the other side, the for-profit businesses, the primary driver is to achieve financial value. And if you think about that as like two extremes, social enterprises and social entrepreneurships, that is pretty much right in the middle of that continuum, where the driver is not just profit, but people, planet, and profit. So there's a social value and a financial value component of these businesses. A sustainable business is really one that has that driver of the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. So B corporations aren't just, it's not a legal status for a business in most states, like an LLC or a C Corp or an S Corp. Those are legal statuses for businesses. In 37 states, there is a legal status for benefit corporation, but not in North Carolina, unfortunately. And it's not even like happening. It's not even like in progress or anything like that. It's just not a priority for our legislature, unfortunately. So what a B corporation is, it's actually a certification for businesses which meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. Hopefully that's clear.
It is, and I appreciate your explanation of what a B Corp is. I forgot I mentioned this in when I introduced myself, but I owned a small business as well, or I was a social entrepreneur. So I appreciate having that perspective being brought up as well.
That's awesome.
Okay, so as our question number 2, what was your guys's career path or your professional journey to get to where you are today? Let's see, we can start off with April and then just kind of popcorn around. Oh, is she?
It looks like her screen is frozen.
Okay, so we are not going to be starting off with April.
So Beverly and Nadeli, if you'd like to answer the question for us.
So about how did we get to where we are right now?
Right.
Yes.
What was your professional journey, I guess, is the terminology.
Yeah.
Of how you got where you are.
Nadeli and I have very different paths, and we kind of, it's a kind of a long trajectory. But I think that my career it's haphazard. I've done everything from working in nonprofit fixing bicycles for kids. I've been on the radio. I've worked in supplemental educational services as a director for a math center. I've been in operations. I am currently an operations manager in commercial property. So it feels, I've worked at a gym. I've worked in self-storage. So it's kind of been all over the place doing a lot of different kinds of things. But I think in terms of how I come to open a bookstore, that is something that happens really as a result of having been a book collector for a while, and probably in the last 2 years having to think, well, really wanting to think through how to, what it might look like as an enterprise. And so that's how I ended up here. So there's no clear path to getting to this point, but yeah, been all over the place. And I think everything that I've done, all the various gigs and jobs, there's always something that you can pull out of those that lends itself to entrepreneurship. So I think in terms of the skills, especially in operations, there's a lot of the kind of the back end stuff that you can pull from a lot of different places to try and piece together what your thing is going to look like. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Wow, I can see how that's definitely like really encouraging to people who maybe don't see a clear path to what they want to do, or maybe don't have career goals right now in this moment, that everything just works out and it plays out perfectly. That's just how life is sometimes. Nadeli, I think you wanted to go after.
Yeah, I think as Bev said, our roads to this are quite different, but similarly meanderous for me, put it that way. I'm currently a graduate student in anthropology at Duke. I mean, I've been my third year of a PhD program, so there's that too. But as with most things, you find that the thing that I'm doing right now kind of feeds into what I end up doing with Rofhiwa. Because a lot of what my research is trying to understand how universities in South Africa, where I am from, how universities through things like publishing houses, university publishing houses, through the speakership circuits and all kinds of things that go into making what is a university, then position a university to either be understood to be a successful or not so successful university. So all those things figure in how we rate universities. So I'm trying to understand how that particular economy works, which actually works very similarly to how you might think about how publishing works as an industry. So I'm finding that that's useful, but that was never how I was thinking that I might use my PhD. Before being in a PhD, I've worked in consulting, so in corporate communications, which is very useful when you are thinking about how to position yourself, particularly in relation to different stakeholders. So a lot of the work that you're doing as a person who has a business is trying to figure out who your business is in conversation with, right? So what your landscape looks like, who are your quote unquote stakeholders? And a lot of that work was work that I had been doing anyway in corporate comms. I studied literature, so that kind of figures into how I'm thinking about this as well. Yeah, I've done various things, but I think those would be the two things that I'm finding are particularly useful right now.
And then April, it seemed that you had some connectivity issues and you were cut off. So if you'd like to kind of give us your professional journey as well.
Sure, apologies for that.
It's okay.
I graduated in 2005 and I loved every minute at Appalachian. And so I encourage people to be happy and well there. It's a wonderful place to explore and figure out what you want to do or not do. After graduating in 2005, I moved to DC and started working for the federal government and decided very quickly that's not what I wanted to do, and actually fell into the job that I'm the job that launched me down this cotton textile supply chain route. And at Appalachian, I studied international comparative politics and Chinese studies. And I grew up overseas, and so I wanted to make sure that I was connected globally and had opportunities to kind of go home, where I felt, home in Asia, home in North Carolina now. So I found a job working for Cotton Council International, doing export promotions of US cotton to Asia, which connected me overseas and got me traveling. It also wonderfully set me down the path of getting really involved in the textile supply chain, all the way from dirt to shirt, basically. cotton grows in the ground. It's this natural organic product that then turns into everything that clothes us. It touches every human on earth. It has a history, not a good one, but we have the ability to change it and affect it. So the different roles I've had over the last number of years in DC, working for Cotton Council International, and then ending back up in North Carolina in Raleigh, working with the Department of Commerce, focused on textile supply chains, bringing textiles back to North Carolina, which eventually led me into the sustainability side of things. I've met a company that has a technology that helps decrease the impact of the textile dyeing world on the environment. The dyeing of textiles is an incredibly environmentally challenging process. So I worked for 4 years working to scale up a technology that decreases water, energy, electric, chemical uses on the cotton dyeing process significantly. So I got to work and learn about the sustainability industry, as well as how to scale up and launch a brand new technology and in the textile supply chain. With all new with all new technology processes, there's potential for failure. It has not failed, it has molded into something else. So I currently work for the Better Cotton Initiative. I'm an independent consultant, and they needed help scaling up their licensing process of US cotton farmers. And so I have been working with them for the last 2 years, implementing their program. And it has been a really wonderful connection back to the origins of source items, cotton growing out of the ground. And so it's been really great to be reconnected on a field level. And it's an area I really enjoy being in. And everything I did at Appalachian really helped establish my leadership skills, my interest in the world, and my ability to connect to different people and areas that I was considering being a part of and was able to explore early in my 20s. And now I've really been able to I wouldn't say that I've refined what I like to do and what I can do. I just know that the industry that I'm in, the textile supply chain, as well as focused on finding new ways to innovate and decrease our impact on the earth while still keeping people clothed, is near and dear to my heart, very broad, but something that allows me a lot of room and creativity.
That is wonderful to hear. So I'm gonna throw this question to Alisa. When I was reading your bio, I was curious to see that you're studying psychology here at App, but also studied library science. So I'm curious as to how you went from studying psychology to starting your own website design or like web design business, and what that has meant for you in terms of sustainable business.
Yeah, I actually, I'm really excited like hearing other people's stories about their own journeys, because I relate to all of you. And partially because, so when I first started at Appalachian, I thought that I wanted to be a business major. Actually, my like teenage dream was to own a book cafe. And that was my goal when I went to Appalachian, was to earn a business degree and be able to open something like that. And I remember it was the first day of like business, intro to business or whatever the first course is. And I hated it. So I dropped that class, and the only one that I was able to pick up was Intro to Psychology. And I was so excited because I actually loved it. And I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in sociology. And what I loved, I think, about my time at Appalachian, specifically in the psychology department, was the research. I really liked doing literature reviews and the research side of things. I didn't ever see myself being a professor or a teacher or anything like that. So I was like, I don't know, PhD in psychology doesn't seem like what I want. But so after a lot of soul searching, when I graduated, I moved to Chapel Hill and went to the UNC Chapel Hill School of Information and Library Science. And I was hoping to graduate from there and get a job in an undergraduate library or a research library at a university and really be able to help students doing research and kind of learning that side of libraries. I mean, libraries are just fun. So I graduated from my master's program in 2009, and I did not want to leave North Carolina. I grew up here in the Triangle. Boone was the farthest west I lived, and I just didn't want to leave. I didn't see myself living somewhere else. So, and I've traveled, but as far as settling down, this is really where I wanted to plant my roots. And I couldn't find a job in libraries. In 2009, there was a state hiring freeze, and I was unemployed for a long time. I actually worked minimum wage at Barnes & Noble for quite a while. And then one of my friends saw a job posting for a junior web developer. And I had taught myself how to code back in middle school in the 90s. And it was always just a hobby and never something that I saw as an opportunity for a career. But she really talked me into applying for that job. And I did, and I got it. And the short version of that is that when I started as a junior web developer, part-time, making like $15 an hour, 4.5 years later, I was the lead developer. I had a team of 3 other developers under me. I was the only woman in that department in development. And when I left, the man that was hired to replace me, or at least promoted to replace me, he was paid the amount that I had asked for in a raise a couple months earlier. And I only say that because, so I'm still friends with my boss. I completely, like, as a small business owner, I understand how hard it is, like, to, I mean, pay, like, money is the hardest part. But that's just a big part of my story. And so when I decided to start my own business 4 years ago, I really wanted to create a place where it wasn't just a job for people. It wasn't just a place where people went to get a paycheck. I wanted to make a place that was welcoming to everybody and that was a business that gave people like me, in terms of being underrepresented in the tech industry, the ability to really find themselves belonging. And so we just this last year implemented an equal pay policy where everybody in the company is paid the same regardless of their position. And that I was so excited to do because it's like the first step towards seeing this, like, the company culture evolving in the way that I've wanted it to.
So I am very excited to hear that. And I'm kind of curious now that we understand your professional journeys. Why is it important for those working in a sustainable business, or in the case of Beverly and Nadeli, why is it important for you to own a sustainable business? So toss the question to anyone.
You want to go first?
Sure.
No, I was meaning Nadeli. Do you want to go first, Nadeli?
Oh, sorry. I was like, yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Well,
I think you should go first because you wanted to speak about, sustainable.
Oh, I think, Nadeli and I, when we've talked about Rofhiwa, we are always grappling because of where Rofhiwa, well, because of what business is and because of what capitalism is and because of what profits are, but especially because of where we are in community. We are in, you know, a neighborhood that is has a lot of historic importance and significance in terms of the Black history there, Haiti being, you know, right there, or us being right in Haiti, really. And because we are located where we are, and gentrification that's happening all around us, you know, I mean, Black folks are being moved out of their homes, and there's houses right across from our shop that are going for $600,000, $400,000, $500,000. So I think that we are always grappling with this question of sustainability and good business and social business. And I think that what we don't want to do is convince ourselves, or I mean, of the goodness of what we're trying to do. I think we start from a place that doesn't assume that what we are doing is fundamentally good. And I think that allows us to, yeah, it's Nadeli calls it an exercise in restlessness. I think we move into that place thinking about, okay, we have to build something that is able to respond to what is happening now in the particular circumstances of where we are. And I think the answer that we come up with most of the time is that we don't know what that's going to be like. You know, we live where we are opening this business. We're not too far from it. It's also our home, and we're painfully aware of what it means for us to be moving into that building. And so when you start from this place where you're like, there is no good business in the system that we're all locked in. So then what does it mean for me to be trying to do this thing? We don't have any great answers. We don't have good answers, but you know, I think one thing that we talk about is that it's maybe an intervention. We might talk about it as a small intervention in like a long line of possible interventions, that it's one possible answer to a problem that perhaps has no solution. And so for me, anyway, you know, I'm a Black queer trans person. I work in commercial property in North Carolina. It's a very white, very male industry. I think for me, what it means is that I have, maybe I have an opportunity to like, and not subject myself to the hell that is, you know, getting up and coming to this kind of work every day. Maybe it means that I can create 2 or 3 more opportunities for somebody else to not have to go do something similar elsewhere. And yeah, you know, and so it's an opportunity. Does it feel like enough? No, it never feels like enough. It never feels like enough to justify my moving into that store and doing what we're doing, which is selling coffee and books. But maybe it's something that might work. Maybe it's something that, you know, folks need, or maybe not. And so if that's not the case, then we have to respond differently. But I don't know if that makes sense. So I'll let Nadeli take over.
Yeah, I think another way that we've often spoken about what one might think of as something resembling a conversation around sustainability is to contend with and be okay with the fact that Rofhiwa might not stand for long. So in the time that Rofhiwa is standing, what kinds of things might it proliferate? So that if the business folds, a person has been able to get that second book deal because a writer in Kenya was suddenly able to sell books in the United States and managed to have a space like Rofhiwa where they could come and launch a book and have that be a thing that they were able to do, to travel to the US and launch a book. That a small publishing house in Jamaica or wherever it is might have us travel with a suitcase to go and pick up books that we then sell in our bookstore, that then proliferates and generates something for that bookstore that has meaning beyond whatever it is we are doing here in Durham, North Carolina. So I think that's how we've had a conversation that I might say is a sustainability conversation, thinking about the kinds of things that Rofhiwa just, even it doesn't, in it for however long it stands, the kinds of things that it is able to generate and proliferate the kinds of opportunities it is able to create for other people beyond just the two of us. And I think part of that is being comfortable with the fact of perhaps having to move on at some point, that we may not always be Rofhiwa, that Rofhiwa will at some point have to be somebody else. And perhaps thinking therefore of Rofhiwa is always an experiment, always evolving. And that requires a flexibility, and it requires setting aside the ego, which I think is something that's very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I like how kind of you and Beverly had referenced an exercise in restlessness, that it's something I've never heard before, but it's a unique perspective that kind of helps also frame the conversation about sustainability. And then also, Alisa, as a small business owner, why do you find it important that your business be sustainable, or why is sustainability important to you? I believe you are muted.
First, it had to happen at least once. So I think that I already touched on kind of my goals around the team and what kind of culture that I want to build for my company. And so I think that that's a big element of the sustainability. I think that sustainability is more than just the environment. It's about people. It's really about people. And in terms of my team, I don't want my team to burn out. I want them to have a fulfilling and happy life, and I want work to contribute to that. In terms of the work that we do, we are a web design agency, and we specifically our difference, I guess, is that we specifically build inclusive and accessible websites, meaning that the websites we build are able to be accessed by everybody, regardless of their physical ability. And we want people to, like, our mission really is to create equity through technology and really leverage technology. In the world, we see it as something that is divisive. And it's, you know, we often see the negative effects of technology on the world. So whether that is in pollution or in cyberbullying, or there's so many negative effects. And what we want to do, like our purpose at Unity, is really to use it in a way for good. So we host websites, and we make sure that they are carbon neutral or even positive in terms of like carbon negative, I guess, is really the way to think about it, where the server that we host websites on they buy back 3 times the number of RECs, or renewable energy credits, than what they consume on the grid. We're actually implementing right now a carbon credit, is that what it's called? I can't remember right now because I'm like on the spotlight, but we're instituting a policy right now for buying back or purchasing carbon credits. April, is that what they're called?
That's one form, yeah.
Okay. Thanks. And also water restoration certificates and that kind of thing. Like, we're working on implementing that for the environmental side at our business. And I think it's important. I mean, businesses are one of the strongest institutions, you know, in the world to be able to create change, and money is power. And so when businesses are able to put their money behind doing something good for the world, then that's just really powerful. And I wouldn't want to be a part of anything else.
Completely.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Vishu, I completely agree. And it kind of shows the complexity behind what sustainable business could be.
Right.
Do you want to add anything else, Vichy?
Well, I was just going to say, like, it sounds like there's a lot of trial and error that comes from, you know, having sustainable business, especially since it is such a newer concept. You know, you guys are kind of the first to do it at this point. Like, we're definitely the newer generation that cares about ethical practices, you know, and it's kind of a big statement to say, you know, we don't really care about the profits as much as we care about, you know, really giving back to the communities that, you know, you all are a part of different communities, and just what you're giving back is something that I think is like really inspiring. Sort of adding on to that, obviously, as I said before, like the knowledge and the skills you've gained through trial and error has contributed to the success in your guys' businesses in different ways. So what is, you know, a couple pieces of advice you would give to a younger version of yourself, or either even someone aspiring to enter the field of sustainable businesses? I guess, yeah, anyone can
I
start.
have a lot of feelings around that. I think that there's an important differentiation between sustainability and your purpose and sustainability in business. I think this group of people have been able to combine that, and I really appreciate the restlessness word. And I think that I, for years, struggled after college because I had a job every year or every 2 years. I was jumping to something else, and I felt without purpose and restless, and in a bad way. And I'm absolutely going to take that word and reframe it moving forward. That's really helpful to me because I grew up all over the place with a lot of different great experiences. And that has formed and allowed me to be flexible and creative, and also really oriented towards what satisfies and fulfills my soul and sustains me personally. And so sustaining my soul is incredibly important to me. And um, you know, having to work 40 hours a week and show up at 8 and leave at 5 never sat well with me, ever. And being there to be there to do nothing was not fulfilling for me. And so having the opportunity that I've strategically been able to restlessly move from that wasn't right, here's something that's closer, here's something that's closer, here's something that's closer. Let me go back to school and refine this skill. Let me talk to these people in this industry. For people at Appalachian and students right now, continue to seek restlessness and change and really cool, innovative things that might not sound traditional or normal. And that's where there really is this generation in the last 5, 6, 10 years of sustainable jobs that fulfill human requirements, but also businesses that are focused on incrementally impacting the world on some level. My level is helping a grower figure out how to use less water right now. And that, granted, there's a whole lot behind that as well, but I'm driven by that because I want to make sure that that piece of clothing that I pick up and conscientiously purchase now has come from somewhere that I believe in and made from something that I believe in. And that's important to me. I know that the purchases and decisions I make go back to a grower that I might know. And that's really cool to me. Sourcing books by really innovative authors that might not have that spotlight opportunity until they find this group in Durham. It's really cool, and that's soul fulfilling for them and really cool for me to learn about. And same with Alisa, having opportunity to make sure that websites are accessible and mission purpose. Very, very cool. These are all three different things. I don't want to do what these people do. I want to do what I want to do, but I also am encouraged to be sitting here with you guys because it allows me to be reminded that the decisions I'm making personally and professionally go back to that, you know, the actual definition of sustainability, you know, decreasing impacts on social, economic, and the environment. Like, how can I be socially responsible, economically responsible, environmentally responsible? I make enough money to know that I don't need to worry about money right now. Someday I have been unemployed. That has not been fun, but I have been supported, and the world has always given me what I need, setting aside ego that was mentioned earlier, just being like, I have wonderfully been set back in my world. And that is also a huge important learning, I think, for students right now. Failure is success. Failing forward, failing into something bigger and better. It doesn't have to be bigger or better for anybody else. It has to be something that's right for that human, for your soul, for your purpose. The money will come so long as you are pursuing the things that allow your heart and your soul to be satisfied. And so long as you're not doing something that hurts anybody else, that only helps and doesn't hurt. And that's where I continue to have failed and gotten fired and lost jobs and not been fit for purpose in places, but really have found this group of people in an industry that I know that I know the right people that know. I don't know everything. I'm not the smartest person in the room ever. I know that and can admit that now. And I'm happy to know the humans on earth that know me well enough to know where my skill set is so they can rely on me and I can rely on them. It's about finding and failing and realizing that you don't have to sit in a job for 10 or 15 years. If you find a job that for 10 or 15 years makes you so happy, keep doing it. I envy that on some level, but having the ability for me to be at home right now and chat with you guys for an hour rather than having to feel like I have to go back to work for something. I get to work for me and I get to get done what gets done for the group that I'm working for to serve ultimately my grower group that's ultimately paying my bills right now. So I encourage exploration and experimentation and reaching out to people that actually have done stuff before to know that it's okay to try and then to go in a completely different direction. I have done that often, constantly changing, but still maintaining who I am on a very deep soul level. I know who I am. And that is my speech.
I like that. I like that a lot. Nadeli, would you like to go next?
I think this might be a bit of an obvious one, but read. I think read beyond a business book. Read fiction, because that way you gain a sense. I'm a researcher, and so I approach everything the same way I might approach a grant proposal. So I'm trying to figure out what the question is and whether and how best I can answer the question. And I think the only way you can understand the kinds of questions that society poses to you, right, and understand them in creative and respond to them in creative ways, is to actually know a world beyond your immediate surroundings. And one of the best ways for you to access that in a way that isn't just consuming images on social media, but in a way that really gets you into other people's worlds and other ways of thinking about things and approaching problems. I made this example to Bev the other day about how I would think about toilet paper if the product we were selling was toilet paper, for instance. And it might be easy to think about, what do people use toilet paper for? But what about those places in the world that don't use toilet paper? And how can I talk about this product in a way that doesn't discount that this is not a universal product, that I understand that I am selling a product that's not universal. And I think that's the kind of consciousness conscientiousness that can only be generated by being a person who is engaged with other people. And one of the primary ways to continue to do that, to be conscientious, is to read. And I cannot stress how much reading fiction has been important to just broadening my sense of the world, developing a sense of deep empathy for other people, but also just read Marx. I think the best way for you to understand how capitalism actually works is to read the best critique of capitalism there ever was. I'm not saying become a communist or a socialist, whatever it is. But what I'm saying is that the best way to understand how the system that we are all in works and to intervene in meaningful ways, in ways that might actually make people's lives better, is to understand how it actually works and how capitalism continues to innovate and to regenerate and to grow, and what kinds of things it takes along with it, what kinds of things it subsumes as it grows. And yeah, and you're not going to get that from a business book that says capitalism is good, full stop. I don't think that's something you can get. So yeah, my advice would be to read.
Beverly or Alisa? Alisa, okay. Sorry, I almost fumbled that one. So specifically, what career advice for someone in your field would you, or someone who wants to pursue a career in your field, would you give to, say, like an undergraduate college student?
Career path. What career path advice would I give? I think anyone pursuing entrepreneurship, at the risk of belaboring the point, I think that you should always be very skeptical of capitalism, which isn't to say don't go open a business, but don't go open a business absolutely convinced that what you're doing is a good thing. And I think that the reason being that as soon as you become convinced of the goodness of the thing that you're trying to do, like I see these people selling mud water and all kinds of things, and it's just like, it's so good, we're doing such a good thing. And I'm like, okay, or you're making money. And that's okay to say. I think it's okay to say I'm making money. I feel like I think if you're trying to get into an entrepreneurship that is maybe trying to intervene in the name of something good, then yes, you absolutely always have to be skeptical of capitalist enterprise. Do it, but do it skeptical. If that's what you're going to do it, but do it reading. And never be so convinced of your own capacity for good, because I think what happens then is that you lose sight of, you stop critiquing your own effort. And you stop critiquing why it matters that you be the person to do this, if at all. That's what I would say. I would say, I would say something different to a Black student trying to do, what we're trying to do, because it's an entirely different experience. I think if you're going to pursue entrepreneurship as a Black, I think one of the challenges for me anyway, being a Black kid trying to think about what it means to be an enterprise is, I always started with the money. I always started with, how am I going to fund this business? I don't have the money. I can't even possibly think about doing a thing because I will never have the money. So, I'm just going to stop here. And that's just, it's not fruitful. Because a lot of times Black kids are just not going to have the money. It's just not going to be there because you don't got it. Because your mom doesn't have it, or your grandmother doesn't have it, or you don't have people that can have your back. You just don't got it. But there is something to be said for thinking your idea through, for planning like you have the money and seeing where it takes you and seeing how far you can get in the thing that you're trying to do. And maybe you get to the very end, and maybe you get to the middle and you're like, this is a really bad idea. I should try something else. But plan it anyway, like you're going to get the money, and you may not get it, but plan it anyway, because there's something to be said for seeing your vision through and planning it through. And maybe you get to the end and you have a fuller picture of what it is that you're trying to do. And it doesn't have to be business. I know we're talking about business, but it could be whatever. But maybe you get to the end and you have the language and you can see the thing and you can talk about the thing. And so, and then maybe you just run into somebody who has a whole lot of money, and now you're in a position where you can talk about the thing that you want to do, and you might be able to convince someone. But if you, I really don't want to, I say that, and I realize that it is impossible sometimes to find yourself in the right places with the right people who will fund your dreams. But I still feel like there's merit to seeing it through, to thinking it through as far as you can. And so that's what I would say. I would say, don't stop at the money. See it through, plan the whole thing, and see where that takes you. Because I'll say this, I've never had the money. When Nadeli and I were thinking about Rofhiwa, we didn't have the money. And so, but we planned and we thought about it and we saw it through. And then, we were fortunate enough in some instances to find ourselves in places where we could ask people. We both work full time. I work an 8-to-5 job that I hate every day of my life. I'm like, why am I here? But I'm fortunate enough to have it because it does allow me to fund portions of this dream. You know, my mom works an 8 to 5 and 8 to 8 that she hates very much still. She's 56, you know, but I'm fortunate because it's allowed her to maybe find portions of my dreams. But I also realize that I'm in a position that other Black kids may not be. They may not be working. They may not have parents who work miserable jobs that give them $2,000 to, you know, start. So there's that. But there was something to planning the whole thing out and then coming back and being like, okay, what can I do now? And it worked with Rofhiwa. There were 10 other projects that it didn't work with, but I would encourage folks to see it through, to see the planning through, and then come back and then ask, okay, so who's going to give me this money?
Yeah, I definitely think in order to establish a business of any size, it takes luck and privilege for sure. I definitely think that there are certain demographics that get more opportunities or more praise for what they get to do. And it's harder to get where someone else is at, even if you have the same skill level or skill set. So I'm really glad you pointed that out because it's definitely true and it's definitely an issue. Alisa, do you have any career advice you would like to give to someone?
Yeah, I think this is directed at the students who don't know what they want to do after they graduate or have any clue about what lies ahead. I had no idea what I would do when I graduated. I saw graduate school as an extension of my undergrad. Like being able to stay in school allowed me that freedom to continue to explore my own passions. But I think that one thing that I wished I had realized or known, or that somebody had told me, was that your major doesn't define you, and what you're doing in your undergrad experience doesn't define what you're going to do the rest of your life. And that was something that I didn't realize in myself until I was, I don't know, probably 10 years out from graduation, after graduation. I think that it's really hard when you've got that tunnel vision of like, you say I am, and you are we all define ourselves in different ways, you know, like I am a psychology major or a photography major or whatever else. That doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. That doesn't mean that that's who you are forever. And I think that like keeping your options open, and not being in the way of not being so hard on yourself for not knowing what you want or knowing what you want to do. That would be my advice.
I still don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm doing things I like doing now, and that's all I know.
Yeah.
I'd say also reach out to alum. I mean, I don't know where my life is taking me. I know that I have purpose as a human, and that changes. And having the opportunity at Appalachian really to explore and join different organizations and really try and be a part of a really supportive network really set me up well to have the confidence to know that I can ask questions constantly. And I still do that. I actually have an informational, I reached out to someone that I was interested in, and we're chatting tomorrow on Zoom. So I'm going to be the person asking questions about how they have gotten where they're going. I'm still a baby in this world. I'm still growing up. I'm constantly evolving, and that's what the beauty of our lives are. We get to change and move and innovate so long as you keep true to who you are and you're not hurting other people and you're pursuing passion. Find other people that are doing cool stuff, even if you're not interested in it, and ask them why they care and what they're doing. And it might lead them to ask a question about what you're doing. And they're like, I know somebody that does something like that maybe you should talk to. And sometimes it's a total dead end and sometimes it's not. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow, that call. I'm looking forward to the day after that, and the people like you guys I get to sit down and talk with. So it's constant learning. You don't stop after college. keep reading. Is incredibly important. Really, really important. Keep learning.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for everything, and for everything that you have to offer us. I'm going to let Avishi close us out.
Yeah, good luck everyone with your businesses. I hope they flourish, till the end of time. Nadeli and Beverly, especially you guys, good luck and best wishes for the opening of your bookstore and cafe. I will be checking out the website if there is one very shortly. Thank you guys. This is really insightful. Yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a nice rest of your day.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.